tale, one of Kaumba's storytellers. Out of Wichita, Kansas, came a civil rights attorney named Donald Lee Hollowell, told by master teller Akbar and Imhotep.
Well, my mentors over on the other side wanted me to come back to see how you were progressing or have been progressing since we left. But let me tell you who my mentors are. I'm sure you've heard of Paul Robeson and Judge Thurgood Marshall. Well, back on the other side, we were talking about things and they wanted me to come back to see how everybody was doing, how things were progressing since we left. And I must say, on one hand, things are looking pretty good. But on the other hand, it's the same when we said in my day. We've come a long way, but we got a long ways to go. Well, excuse me, I've been standing here talking to you and didn't tell you my name. My name is Donald Lee Hollowell. Who is Donald Lee Hollowell? Son of Oceania and Harrison Hollowell. Husband to Louise Thornton, Buffalo soldier, All-American football player, member of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity. Now, I was born in Wichita, Kansas, and as a child, my parents moved around a lot looking for work to make things stable for our household. And when I was a teenager, we ended up in Leavenworth. Now, I don't know how many of you have heard of Leavenworth, Kansas, but there are many things that might be famous for, but two things I know that it's famous for. One is a super maximum prison called Supermax, and the other is Fort Leavenworth. Now, the thing that kind of makes Fort Leavenworth stand out from all the other forts is that it was the home of the 10th Cavalry. Oh, 10th Cavalry. Now, what is that, Mr. Hollowell? The 10th Cavalry is lovingly known as the Buffalo Soldiers. But the 10th Cavalry wasn't the only regiment. There was the 9th, the 24th, and the 25th. The 24th was housed in Texas, and the 25th in New Orleans. Now, two things, wonderful things happened to me while I was in the 10th Cavalry. One, I got my high school diploma because my father had pulled me out of high school to help take care of the family. But you know, things have a way of working out. I got my high school diploma through a correspondence course, and you're not going to believe this, I learned how to type. Those two things served me for the rest of my life. After I was discharged from the military, I went to Lane College. Now, many of you probably haven't heard of Lane College, but Lane is an HBCU located in a place called Jackson, Tennessee. And if I looked at it on the map, I would say it's about halfway between Nashville and Memphis over on the west side. So I went there and I played football. I was honored to become what they call the All-American. And I pledged a fraternity. Now, how many of you think you can guess which one it was? No. Kappa Alpha Psi. Now, while I was at Lane, I was called back into the military to serve during World War II. Now, there's a whole lot of things I can tell you about my life during World War II, but two I will mention. I met my wife, Louise Thornton, when I was in basic training at Fort Benning. And after going over to the European theater, I made it back to the States alive. Made it back, went back to Lane, and before I graduated from Lane, I had the opportunity to go to a student conference up in Raleigh, North Carolina. Now that conference was keynoted by a gentleman named Paul Robeson, my mentor today on the other side. And at that conference, Mr. Robeson gave the keynote. And what he did was he challenged us to commit our lives to making things better for those who would come after us. Well, I took that as my sacred call. And so when I graduated from Lane, instead of going to dental school, which I had planned to do, I decided to go to law school. I applied, and I was accepted at Loyola University Law School up in Chicago. After earning my JD, Louise and I started our lives here in Atlanta. She was teaching at Morris Brown College, and I was launching my lawyer career in a city they say too busy to hate, but not too busy to discriminate. That was the 50s, and then came the 60s. The Civil Rights Movement, the Atlanta Student Movement. I became the lawyer of choice for the Atlanta Student Movement. It was a season of non-stop lawyering, and I even got to represent the man known as ML to many, and to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to the world. The first time I got to represent Dr. King was after he participated in a march with the Atlanta Student Movement while he was on probation for participating in an earlier march in another city. Can you believe? For a simple parole violation, actually it wasn't parole, it was probation. For that simple violation, they sent him to a maximum security prison down in Reedsville, Georgia. And Reedsville, my friends, is not around the corner from Metropolitan Atlanta. But my team and I wasted no time in going to his rescue and secured his release. Now, but the toughest or the most challenging time I had representing Dr. King was during the Albany movement down in southwest Georgia. And I heard Dr. King say many times he had dealt with some stubborn people all throughout the South. But those local officials in southwest Georgia, Dougherty County, may have been some of the most stubborn that he had ever had to deal with. Now, after that, we made it through that. I need to say we prevailed anyway. Now, come back. After that, I had the opportunity to participate in some paradigm shifting cases. Like one, we desegregated the Atlanta public schools. Then we desegregated all the public transit systems throughout the state, starting right here in Atlanta, governed by the Atlanta Way. Have you ever heard of the Atlanta Way? Let me tell you what that was. That was when the Negro leaders and the white leadership would come together behind closed doors and make arrangements to keep things calm and Atlanta out of the headlines. And I can say that they were pretty successful because to this day, Atlanta is still known as the city too busy to hate. I was fortunate enough to participate in some other major cases. One, desegregating Grady Hospital. Another was desegregating Georgia State Business College. Now, you probably never heard of Georgia State Business College, but it's now known as Georgia State University. And during that whole season, what some people say was the highlight of my career, was helping to desegregate the University of Georgia. And I should mention that during that litigation, I got to work with two of my mentees, Constant Motley Baker, and my mentees, Vernon Jordan and Horace Ward. Now I could stand here and talk to you about the things and what people say about me, but who do I say I am? History has been real kind to me, calling me foot soldier for justice, Mr. Civil Rights, lawyer for the Atlanta Student Movement, All that's good. But for me, I would like to just simply be known as Louise Thornton's husband and a lawyer who helped to save Preston Cobb Jr. from the electric chair. Let me just tell you a couple of things about my wife. First, she's a place called Iron City, down near Bainbridge, Georgia, way down in the southwest corner of the state. She's my Georgia peach, my soulmate, and a gift to a humble soldier from Wichita, Kansas. She's a businesswoman and an educator, taught at Morris Brown, and was one of his distinguished professors. That's my wife. Let me tell you about one of my proudest moments. I was on a team that helped to save Preston Cobb Jr. from the electric chair. You say, well, Mr. Hollowell, who's Preston Cobb Jr.? He was the youngest person to be sentenced to the electric chair in the state of Georgia at the ripe old age of 15. When my team and I saw some of the paperwork from the trial, we noticed some inadequacies, and we immediately filed a stay. And I'm here to say to you today that after several years of litigation, his death sentence was changed to time service. Now I'll end by saying this. When I get back to the other side, I'm going to tell Mr. Robeson and Judge Marshall that you guys are taking care of business and that our future is in good hands. I want to leave you with one more thing. At that conference that I went to in the early 40s, when Mr. Robeson challenged us or gave me my sacred call, he simply asked her to commit our lives to making things better for those who would come after us. And I leave that same challenge with you. My name is Donald Lee Hollowell, and I'm pleased to be your servant. Thank you.
A street named in Hollowell's honor is just one of many honors that mark his legacy. I'm Jeremiah, and this has been Kaumba's Profile in Color.